And now we have reason to believe that actually it might be a competition-sponsored attack.
Welcome to the weekly Late Nights at Kyvio. These are your hosts, Stephen Vanderpyle and Neil Napier. Join us on our journey to Kyvian world domination and learn from our mistakes, wins, and take a peek into the day-to-day challenges of an all-remote tech startup.
Hey there, so welcome to the first ever official Late Nights at Kyvio session. So it's actually early morning for me, and Stephen, it's pretty late for you right now, isn't it?
It's Late Nights at Kyvio, so as the name would suggest, it is kind of late.
Well, one of us it has to be. So we work in different time zones. We're a completely remote team. Stephen's in Colombia right now. I'm in Finland, and we usually find ourselves on the opposite side of the world. So it's quite interesting. And I think today's issue is even more interesting. What do you think, Stephen?
I think both issues are very interesting. It's like a marriage. I just want to be as far away as possible from you.
It does work out better, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But it does work out a lot better indeed. But yeah, today's issue is not about marriage. Well, you know, there's kind of parallels you could kind of do there. Like it's a very important partner we had some issues with. But yeah, it's going to be definitely an interesting session today.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what happened. Essentially, on Friday the 13th of all the dates, I woke up to Stephen messaging me frantically saying we're in trouble. I'm like, hey, what happened? Like, I just woke up. Can you give me a couple of minutes? So Stephen mentioned that Stripe is kicking us out. And I was like, hold on a second. What have we done? You know, what's wrong? Because we've been doing everything we, could to stay compliant. And it turns out that one of our customers bought, I think he bought like 4 trials or 7 trials in a very short amount of time. And, he had some future payments coming in after that as well, but he charged back those. And now we have reason to believe that actually it might be a competition-sponsored attack. But anyway, he charged back multiple payments within a day. Within like 2 minutes, there were 9 chargebacks. And of course, Stripe looked at it and they thought, okay, this is something fishy, something weird's going on. Let's ban these guys. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Stephen, you actually saw that email first. What went through your mind when you saw that?
Well, first thing that went through my mind was, fuck. And then I was like, all right, let's have a look what's happening here. And I dived into the email and I looked at what they were saying, and they were basically saying, right, so your monthly rollover chargeback rate is over 1%. And I'm like, well, how that happened? And then I started looking at it. And yes, like Neil just mentioned, there was one guy who disputed 9 transactions at one time. I'm like, how does one person buy our software 9 times? That doesn't make any sense. So then I just kind of went into the research and see what happened there. And it turned out this guy bought his first account, if I remember correctly, in February. And then he instantly bought it like 3 times. And like our system didn't catch that, unfortunately, something we are changing right now, or actually I've already changed. And apparently didn't raise any flags with Stripe either. And then about a month later, he basically did the same thing, plus some of the recurring payments came in. And on the first account, he actually used 2 emails as well, very similar emails, but still 2 emails, and on the same exact name, first name and last name, exact IP as well, and exact same credit card as well, all came from Peru. And well, it turned out like his first account, he never logged in. He didn't even like bother to log into our software. And to the second account he created, he logged in once, about a week after he purchased. So yeah, that's what happened basically there.
So, I mean, just some things, if you're watching and if you're using Stripe or any other platform to collect payments, this is something for you to realize as well, that you might be able to address this head on if you're able to see patterns in these kind of purchases. Now, usually I'm very good at seeing patterns because I look at a lot of different things that are happening quite often and I see if there's anything common between them. But in this case, we completely missed it because we weren't microscopically looking at all the payments coming in. So as Stephen mentioned, of about 560 or so completed payments in Stripe that we had made in the last 3 months, we had suddenly 10 chargebacks, one of them from another customer, but 9 from this one customer. That completely derailed us. And truth be told, I was a little bit hurt because we have had a reputation with PayPal for a very long time. We've processed, I think, over $5 million with them, or I think $6 million in the last 5 years. So we've been pretty good with them, and PayPal wanted us to use their services and nothing else. Of course, they would want more fees and whatnot, but we wanted to use Stripe because that's always been recommended for startups as the go-to tool, something that you should use because it is so well supported by the development community. But what hurt me was the fact that Stripe didn't really look at the circumstances of these chargebacks. They, didn't follow on to give us a warning that, hey, there's a person who's buying from the same IP multiple times. And I wish they would have done more there. I mean, I know that we'll talk about the lessons learned. I know we could have done a lot as well, but I wish they had stepped up and given us a warning first, then actually told us that we're going to close your account in the next 5 days. And for me personally, when I saw the message, I was just dumbfounded because as a startup owner, when you wake up in the morning and it's a Friday morning, you're looking forward to the weekend. And, we had plans with my wife, and it wasn't something I was ready for. And I know these challenges get thrown at you, but this one's what I would say somewhat unnecessary one that could have been avoided with a little bit of manual intervention. And we tried to communicate with Stripe immediately, Stephen, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's the first thing we did. We sent an email, explain it fully, like, hey guys, these 9 transactions. I see that they bring us over the rolling chargeback rate that you obviously don't allow. But this is one person. We can show it. You can see it in your own system as well. And it was just a fraudulent transaction, and we'll do whatever it takes to stop this in the future. Obviously, we're gonna we asked them for advice, and later on we got it. But in the first few emails, they were just basically unresponsive, like copy pasting their emails, and that didn't help at all. And they were just blaming their financial partners on what was happening there, that they couldn't do anything to help us out. And the thing that frustrated me the most was those 5 days. They were like, oh yeah, and we're so sorry that we don't want to push other customers away from us right now, but it's our financial partners that make us do this, etc., etc. And we were like, well, 5 days, it's impossible for any company to create and test and integrate a full new payment processor in 5 days. And it was even the weekend as well. Like their 5 days limit included the weekend. So obviously none other payment processors actually going to reply to us and help us out with fast integration with them.
So there's a really big, real challenge here for businesses, for startups that are starting to use Stripe. I mean, as I'll tell you soon, they did come around eventually. But the problem is that if you are building a business with Stripe, they are now a $1 billion company. They don't owe you anything. They don't owe you an account. They don't owe you. I mean, it's a transaction. You're paying them money for processing payments, and they can shut you down anytime. So we'll talk about what else you can do, but there's a good side to the story. In the end, and I'll talk about a few people at the end of the session, but we did some postings in a few Facebook groups to ask for help from other SaaS owners, and some people came through. I mean, I did a post, and within 3 or 4 days, we were up to 100 plus comments because everyone chipped in with advice, everyone chipped in with contacts, and like Stephen said, we spent the whole weekend frantically just going around messaging whoever we could, and it was the most frustrating weekend I've ever had because I was traveling and I was on my phone all the time trying to communicate with people, trying to talk to Stephen to make sure that we're okay now. And in the meantime, I mean, I also remember we were looking at other platforms as well, and we'll talk about those. But all this weekend, we were trying out 2Checkout, Braintree, Paddle, and everything under the sun. Chargeback, I had calls with. I literally took 5 calls within 2 hours with people who were trying to pitch me, their payment processor. And I mean, thanks to them, of course, they came in at the right time. But it was just a really, really frantic weekend. I think, Stephen, maybe same for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. I had the luxury of not having to travel today and telling your parents-in-law important news. But I was just here working hard away and just trying to prepare for possible new integrations, and still trying to convince Stripe as to at least give us a little bit more time or take a look again at the case itself, of course.
Yeah, so the good news is it did work out. We had someone who I'll mention at the end of this video coming in with a contact, and we pursued that contact. He was an employee at Stripe, and he forwarded to someone, the right person, and they came back and said, we'll put your account in review in a way, so you can still continue to use it, but they of course had a stricter restriction on what kind of rolling chargeback rate we have to meet, which is perfectly fine. And then, them and us work together to make sure that we were better, we were safer in terms of the transactions coming in, which brings me to the first thing that we want to talk about, what we are doing moving forward to make sure that we are more safe, we are more secure. And Stephen, I think you're the one implementing that at the moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Lindsay was our contact in the end that was actually responsible for such cases. And she was amazing. She was super nice, and she helped us out straight away when we got connected with her. And she kind of pointed on us like, you have to use Radar. And I was like, Radar? What's Radar? And we've been using Stripe for like 3 months, but apparently, I don't know if this is all our fault or lack of marketing on Stripe. I'm just going to blame ourselves for it, but we didn't have Radar completely 100% set up. So Lindsay, she told us like, oh yeah, we can recommend you a few rules to set up that to minimize the risks of such fraudulent payments, because they came to the same conclusion. This is 100% a fraudulent payment. This wasn't a real customer that had an issue with our software, obviously. And so I went in, I dived into the documentation of Radar and started setting it up. It was actually really easy. Like, you do not even have to be technical for that at all. Just like by reading the documentation and setting up some really simple rules using basic plain English, if condition, then do this. And you can set, like, you can block whole countries if you want. You have to be careful with that, of course, but also more advanced rules. If it's a prepaid credit card, and if it's from an anonymized IP address like Tor or VPNs and stuff like that, if those are combined with one payment, then block it or put it in review as well. So I think I created about 10 review rules. I went pretty strict, so a lot of the transactions that come through now are being flagged as for review. That does mean we accept the payment and the account and everything gets created, but that just gives us a signal like, hey, anybody that is in our team, like, go and have an extra look at it. And for us, that basically means that one of our support staff actually reaches out to that particular person just to say hi and saying, is everything okay? And if they reply normally yes, and whatever questions they might have about software, then we just approve the payment and everything is fine, and we'll help that customer on, of course. And I think I added about 4 or 5 different rules that instantly block payments, that we just say, no, this is too high risk. And there's some artificial intelligence going on there that's just built into Radar 2.0, which has been recently released by Stripe, or just like, I think a few weeks, maybe a month ago or something like that. But they now have an artificial intelligence that basically looks at all the data they have, which is a lot, of course. And with that machine learning algorithm, determine if a transaction is medium risk or high risk. Like medium risk, that goes to review. High risk is actually completely blocked instantly. And so far, we haven't had any issues with it, like false positives or anything. You have to be very careful with that, especially in the beginning, because the AI engine of Stripe is 2 sides. So it's based on all the data they have. So that's a big data set, and it's also based on your own data. And of course, that's going to be a much smaller data set, which basically means it needs a lot more training and you have to be a little bit extra careful. But yeah, I can highly recommend Radar for all entrepreneurs out there watching this show right now. If you haven't paid any attention to it like we had before, definitely go log in and check that out. And make sure you enable it as well, because it's not enabled by default.
Yeah, and we can link to the documentation underneath. So, we're not showing anything right now, but if you want to check it out, just click on the link underneath this video. I made a note. I'll put it there so you can check out Radar. Otherwise, just Google Radar Stripe and you'll find a lot of things. So that was the first thing that we implemented. But being entrepreneurs, when you start something, when it's a new business, you do end up, because of convenience, putting all your eggs in one basket. Like if I ask you, which social media platform do you go to all the time? You'll say Facebook, because that's true. And that's the problem when you're running a business. Our good friend Wilco says that if something in your business is focused, if it's more than 50% resource intensive, it's wrong. So he's running a lot of traffic through Facebook ads, and now he's starting to diversify, because what if the Facebook ads account gets canceled, gets banned? In our case, fortunately, Stripe only amounted to about 30% of our recurring payments. But, moving forward, this number was growing and we wanted to grow it to 60, 70, 80 even. And this presented to us another challenge that we can't really put all our eggs in one basket. We can't really have Stripe and PayPal because, even then if Stripe closes down, we can't move the payments. If PayPal closes down, of course, we can't move the payments. So Stephen and I have been talking. We have been fielding a lot of calls from a lot of different companies. Most get on a call and then they say, oh, so where are you based? And we say Hong Kong. They say, oh, sorry, we can't serve you because we only serve US customers, which is perfectly fine. I just wish they'd asked before getting on a call with us. But we have been talking to a lot of companies, and this is something I didn't know before. Again, I'm the CEO, but the marketing head of the company. Stephen's the development head. So I didn't completely understand the difference between Stripe and like Chargebee or Recurly. So Recurly and Chargebee are services that sit on top of Stripe, to Checkout, Braintree, PayPal, that are PCI compliant and that manage all your payments in a way. So they are kind of like record-keeping storage space. So they hold all the transaction details. And let's say if Stripe decides to can you, you can switch on over to Checkout or Braintree quickly, and Chargebee will do that for you, working along with both Stripe and Braintree. So we've realized that moving forward, we want to have alternatives. And unfortunately, it does mean that we will end up paying the highest fees on all of these platforms because we're now spreading our transactions on all 3 or 4 different platforms. But it's a fair price to pay, because what you're also doing in that case is making sure that if one of these platforms, cancels you, at least you can still pay the salaries for next month. At least you can, you still have money to withdraw next month. So those are the things that we're working on now. We're looking at, of course, we have Stripe. We got Stripe back. We are going to continuously use that and improve our interactions with them. We're also looking at Checkout at the moment. We're looking at Paddle. Paddle's like a complete all-in-one service, so that's something we're considering as well. And then I'm thinking, we tried Braintree. I don't mind telling you. We tried Braintree and they said, we don't work with a business that uses sales funnels or sells a software that creates sales funnels. I was like, what the hell? That's like 99% of businesses out there. But anyway, Braintree, questionable. But we are looking at some merchant accounts in Hong Kong as well. So I'll have a call with some of them in a few weeks to make sure that they are right fit for us. So that's what I would say. If you are building an online business, there's no reason you shouldn't diversify. If you do find that a lot of your income, a lot of your traffic, a lot of your customers are coming from, more than 50% of them coming from one source, start switching, because if that source goes down, you will get in trouble. So that's the second thing that we're doing. And I think, Stephen, you had some more things that came from the post we made in the Growth Hacks group, right?
Yeah, for sure. We got a lot of amazing feedback from a lot of amazing people. So definitely thanks to all of those in that group. We'll mention it a little bit later on for sure. But yeah, one of the things I also really wanted to mention, like Neil said, it's good to have like a solution that sits on top of your payment processor, so the process that actually processes the payments. However, there's a little caveat there, because we already had that, and that solution is called Zaxa. However, Zaxa is not PCI compliant, so they do not actually store the payment details like the credit card data, name and stuff like that. So they're basically completely useless to switch around. They could actually also work with Checkout, which we got approved for, and we will probably implement them as well. So like what we're gonna do right now is we're building a system that is basically, it's like a continuous split test. Like randomly when somebody lands on our pricing page and actually hits that pricing buy now button or start this trial button, they might go to Paddle, they might go to Checkout, they might go to Chargebee, and we'll just completely randomize that. And even then we can kind of say, after a while, after we have some data of the basically continuous split test, say like, okay, so apparently Chargebee converts a lot better for some reason than to Checkout or whatever. So we can kind of play with those percentages, right? So we can say, okay, like do 20% to Paddle, 20% to whatever, Stripe, direct Stripe, and then do 60% to Chargebee. Maybe 60% again is a little bit too much. You have to be careful with that. But Neil just made the point, obviously. But you can play around with that and actually help your revenue there as well. And there's the one more thing that I really wanted to mention that we found was really good advice from James from the SaaS group, and he kind of mentioned like, yeah, how is it even possible that one person makes that much transaction in such a short time? That doesn't make much sense in a way how you charge your people. Because if they want to upgrade, it should just be a click on of a link or a button, and they should be upgraded and be charged a higher amount for that month, and not have multiple transactions basically running in parallel. So he said, like, basically what is really important for your own protection is limiting the amount of transaction one user can make in a certain time period for your software. Now, for us, this was and still is right now with Zaxa is impossible, because they just don't have the options, the feature set that is able to like do the one-click upgrades and stuff like that. So we kind of had to work around that. That's why we had that. But yeah, like especially when we now start integrating more deeply with Stripe directly without Zaxa, and using other solutions like Paddle and chargeback, that is going to be possible, and will definitely be one of our spear points to protect ourselves.
Exactly. So again, making sure that we continue to use platforms that give us that flexibility that we need. And really at the end of the day, if we do these three things, we are sure that we can hedge our bets. We are sure that we can work closer with companies like Stripe and Paddle and so on. So again, just to recap, the first thing is turn on the radar in Stripe. The second thing is don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And the third thing is no more than one transaction a month, from a customer, one base transaction, I would think. And I know there might be upgrades and downgrades multiple times in a month. So those are some of the things that we are doing. And, I wanted to kind of wrap it up by just giving a quick shout out to people who chipped in with advice, with suggestions, with recommendations at the right time. Because again, when I woke up in the morning on Friday and when I saw everything that was going on, I was just completely shocked. So people like Thomas, Ivan, Lukman, Nasik from SaaS Growth Hacks groups. Lauren had some really good advice as well, which we were doing kind of, but like Stephen mentioned, it was with Zaxa, which wasn't PCI compliant. So Lauren Winsler mentioned always process your SaaS subscription separately from customer connected accounts in Stripe, or consider like a Braintree VPay for your subscription separately. So he had some advice as well. And then Thiago jumped in too, and Lauren had a lot more good advice, so he kept coming back with recommendations. And then we had Stefan Pretty as well, Joran Korthout, who's also, I know him as a fellow SaaS owner, Murray Leach, and Kayan Kirby, who was working with a payment processor, and she said that if you're looking for alternatives, we can look at that. And James Palmer, obviously, Stephen talked about his advice, so we're going with that as well. Kyle Dyke recommended us to call Stripe. I couldn't find the number initially. When I did, I was so busy talking to other people that I couldn't actually call them. And Stephen wanted to, but it's more than his time zone, but he couldn't log into Stripe immediately. But we had one person who came in with a recommendation. So there were a few other people, Brody, Adam, but there was one person particularly who came in with a contact whom we could get in touch with and who got everything resolved. That person's Tigran, and again, I've thanked him personally. When I meet him next time, I'll buy him a drink. But, you'd be surprised how helpful people are when you're up against the wall. And I think that's where the SaaS Growth Hacks community is great as well, in that if you have a problem in your business, they all kind of come together and help you solve it. And, again, thank God for communities. I think I see Kyvio community the same way as well, where if someone gets stuck, people quickly jump in and try and get them unstuck and take them out of the swamp. I think that's my feeling on the topic anyway. Stephen, what do you think? And maybe we can wrap it up as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was really impressed and amazed by the responses of that thread and how fast it all went, basically, and everybody just trying to help out. So I love that. Like, we have a few competitors that are direct competitors for our software as well, but they're friends. Like, we share data with them. Like, for example, the whole GDPR stuff, like we are continuously sharing data to help each other. And that's how
data
competition...
stats, by the way, just to point that out, not customer data, but numbers like churn and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think just like friendly competition helps SaaS owners so much instead of like making, what's the English kind of saying, make each other look black? No,
I don't know.
I know. I think that's a Dutch thing.
Sure.
But yeah, it's like down talking your competition and saying like, oh yeah, this is like they're doing it bad or whatever. And instead of that, just helping out each other, and groups like the SaaS Growth Hacking group are really amazing for that. So yeah, again, thank you so much for everybody helping out there. And I think it was a very valuable but stressful lesson. But yeah, heck, that's just entrepreneurship. It's always going to be stressful. There's always going to be shit thrown at your face at certain moments. And, you know, it's like you overcome it and you learn from it and it gets stronger from it as well.
Absolutely. So thanks for watching this, and we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you've enjoyed this session of Late Nights at Kyvio. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kyvio Lab, and join us on Facebook. See you in the next episode.